Welcome back to the other side of 45 podcast. I am your host, Randy Black. This podcast is about taking chances, owning my mistakes, addressing generational family trauma and curses, completing my 50/50s by 50 list, and my life as a single empty nester. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Please subscribe and rate this podcast 5 stars. Oh, and leave a great review. This episode, I'm going to talk about mental health. Since July is BIPOC Mental Health Month, formerly known as B.B. Moore Campbell National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, Mental Health America is doing this awareness for BIPOC Mental Health Month. And I want to do my part, so I'm going to share my story. My last solo episode, entitled The Plan, The Ugly Dress, in 2019, I shared some personal information about my mental health struggles. It was difficult for me, and it brought up memories that I had not thought about in decades. And I was telling my daughter about the memories that resurfaced, and she encouraged me to share more on the podcast. So here we go. Now, that last episode went kind of deep, dark. So this episode, I'm going to talk about some things, but it's not going to be as deep and dark because when I tell you it took me some time to process, it really did. And I'm not sure that I'm really fully ready to share some of those more deeper things. So, but this is still about my mental health and some of the struggles. So let's just dive right in. So in that last episode, my last solo episode, I talked about I went to see a therapist in 2020. And I also talked about, I mentioned very briefly that embarrassing mother was a concern for me because it was just something you didn't do. You did not embarrass her. So in this episode, I want to dig a little deeper. So my therapy session, I'm going to tell you, y'all know I don't remember certain things, but I don't remember what we were talking about. But I mentioned in our discussion that I was not attractive. I don't know what exact words I said, but that was what it boiled down to. Is I made a comment. I'm not sure what I said, but the gist of it was that I said that I was not attractive. Now, my therapist was doing her job, and so she tried to address this fly-by-night comment, and she tried to uplift me by saying something to the effect that I shouldn't feel this way. Now, look, before you send me a message, please don't. Because I'm going to tell you what I told her. I said, at my age, I don't need my ego stroked, and it is unnecessary to, quote unquote, build me up with affirmations. Because, believe it or not, I am comfortable with the skin I'm in. And just because I don't believe I'm as attractive as most doesn't mean I'm not comfortable in my skin. I'm good. Okay, so I want you to think about it this way. You know, all the body positivity that you're seeing, and there are a lot of women who are embracing their full figure bodies, and they understand that they may weigh more than most, others, but man, they are loving the skin that they are in, and they're doing so unapologetically. And that's where I like to think that I am. I'm in that point. I recognize it where, as far as attractiveness is concerned, and I'm okay. It's like, whatever. So, but when it comes to my children, my daughters, I tell them all the time that they are beautiful because I actually believe it. And I also have said to them that I believe that the beauty genes skip me. So I'm gonna try to explain why I'm comfortable and accepting who I am and how I look. Okay, so hopefully you'll get it. So I used to say, and I probably have said it still, I say, to be in our family, you need thick skin. Because, honey, my family can be brutal. And when you grow up with the people who should love you the most, calling you names, as you get older, you get desensitized and it doesn't bother you. And I believe that's where I am. Now, let's be clear. I don't agree with degrading or name calling. I don't think that you should do that. And I do check my family when they speak that way to my girls, or when they talk about my girls in a degrading manner, or if they call them names, I check them. Because honey, I don't care who you are, you're not gonna mess with my kids. So, and I think it's important that we're careful with our words, especially when it comes to talking to children. Speaking of children, I will tell you a story. One of my first memories, and I'm saying one of my first because, like I said, a lot of stuff came up when I talked about on my last solo episode. A lot of memories came up. Anyway, one of my first memories of being called a name when I was 6 or younger. I know I was that young because my great-grandparents were still living and my mother had not yet joined the cult. And she joined when we were 8. And I say we because most people know I have a twin sibling. However, in this podcast, I won't always refer to say us. I'll say me because this is not her story. This is mine. But anyway, so I say I was 6 or younger. And we were still in the church. So we were on our way to church. And we had stopped at my great-grandparents' house to pick them up or do something with them. I don't know. But anyway, whoever was driving, I want to say it was my grandmother, or it could have been my aunt. I'm not sure. I was really young. But anyway, we were sitting in the car waiting. We were sitting outside the house, and mother looked at me. Apparently, my nose was not clean, and she got a Kleenex, probably a napkin, I don't know. And she went to clean my nose, and she referred to me, well, I guess my nose, as Booger Town City. That's what she called me. Man, I was so embarrassed because everyone in the car laughed. But the thing about it is that nickname, it stuck with me for a little while. They called me that on a regular basis for a while. So that was one of my first memories, and it was very common in my family for the adults to laugh at us children and call us names. Very, very common. I've been called many names in my family. I believe that my family were the first people to call me names. There were nicknames, or I'll just not really nicknames. There were names, tauntings that they used to pick on me from my hair to my feet. If it was a body part, or if I owned it, they had a name for it, and they made fun of it in one way or another. But I guess for me, it wasn't. I'm trying to make lemons out of lemonade. Lemonade out of lemons. I guess it was a life lesson because I am a bit paranoid about my nose being critter free. I like to use the term critter free versus the term they used back in the day. I really am very paranoid about talking to somebody and then finding out later that my nose wasn't clean. I know it's silly, but now you know why. I'm gonna move on because that's pretty gross. So I'm gonna talk about my attractiveness. So my mother is pretty. She has beautiful hazel eyes that I say she got it from my grandfather, but it's not true because my grandfather's eyes were gray. Very, very beautiful gray eyes. My grandfather had very beautiful gray eyes. My mother has very beautiful, striking hazel brown eyes. It's one of the first things that most people notice about her. Now, me, on the other hand, I was not so fortunate. I have called myself ugly many times. I mean, so many times I can't even count. And it makes my girls angry. And I want to say I tried to stop, or that I stopped, but I've had to work on that because the girls, they don't understand, or they didn't understand in the way I meant it, that I was accepting my looks, and I didn't look at it as putting myself down. I still don't look at it as that. But anyway, they do. And so I do try to avoid that type of language. So let me tell you how I upgraded it. I upgraded, and I think I've said it on this podcast before, I've upgraded it to say that I have the perfect face for a podcast. Okay, but then, I'm starting to do video podcasts, so whatever. And a relative, and speaking of when I was growing up and some of the negative things that was said to me, a relative said to me, and I won't say the relationship, she said to me when I was a child that she was like, that I was an ugly baby. And so it was more like, my goodness, you were an ugly baby. I mean, you look better now. I just remember that, and it wasn't one time. The fact that, or the thought in my family that I was an ugly baby was just common. People said it all the time. It was just something, as a very young person growing up as a child, I just accepted, that I was an ugly baby. And there are pictures of me as a baby, and I don't really know how I take it, because I've always been told I was an ugly baby. So when I see the pictures, I don't know that I'm that upfront and say, oh, I was ugly, or if I look at myself that way. I've never really commented or even really thought about it until now, whether or not I felt like I was ugly. And it doesn't really matter, because I'm not a baby anymore. But it wasn't just, like I said, it was said, it was more like, I want to say a common thing. That's just how they felt. So I grew up knowing that, or believing that I was an ugly baby and that I was looking better. Just never pretty. And as a matter of fact, I remember mother being asked point blank, did she think that I was pretty? And she took a long pause and she said, well, I think you look okay. And she just put her hand up. You remember, like, back in the day, we would do that little hand, like, I think you look okay. But then is what she said after that. She said that she pointed out a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, Nicole, and she said that she wished that we looked, I don't want to bring my twin sibling, but anyway, that we looked like this one person. So that was really difficult for me, because this was a really good friend of mine, and I knew that my mother wanted me to look like that, and that who I was not good enough for her. And she tried. And I know, ouch, and that's harsh. And I'll admit that, knowing that she wished that I was pretty, it was hard. It was a hard pill to swallow as a young girl. And I also felt like I was a burden and unwanted and an embarrassment. Now, I've discussed before that mother didn't want me, and I'll talk more about the feelings of being a burden to her on a later podcast. But anyway, the name calling, the fear of embarrassing mother, being told that I was ugly and that she wished I looked like someone else. You know what? I get it. It shows up in my life. It showed up when I was raising my children. Like, for instance, I wouldn't take pictures. And my oldest noticed it when she moved into a dorm. And she was like, everybody's putting up pictures of them and their parents, and I don't have a picture of us. I mean, there are not zero pictures, but there are very few pictures of me and the girls. And the thing is, when I was growing up, I hated taking pictures because we were forced to do family pictures. I just hated it. I mean, if you're old enough, you may remember Olin Mills. I'm not even sure if they're still around. And mother had this plan, and it's like every few months she had to take pictures. So we were always taking pictures, and then we would get the pictures back, and then she would, don't like this, why do you do that? So I never, ever got over that. I never liked taking pictures. Even today, I don't like taking pictures. But I will say this, and I said in the intro that I'm owning my mistakes. To me, that's a mistake. I know that was wrong, and if I could do that over, I would, because I do regret not taking more pictures. And the thing about it is, you can't undo it. So if you're listening and you're like me, you don't like taking pictures, I would ask that you reconsider. Think about the future, because you might take some pictures that you may not particularly care for. It's not very flattering, so you might don't put them up. You'll have the option because you have all these pictures. But if you don't take the pictures, then you don't have any options. You have nothing. Now, I do take more pictures now. Like, if you go to my Instagram, you'll see me sharing my fitness journey on Instagram, and you can see I make sure that I'm in the pictures now. Now it is from the neck or shoulders up, but it's me nonetheless. And that feeling that I wasn't pretty enough, it was hard because I felt like I was an embarrassment to mother. Because she was looking at other people and thinking, why am I not having kids that look like this? Or we'll say a child. But anyway, so going back to my last episode, when I shared the story about the young man in the cult that ended his life and mother's reaction being how embarrassed his family must be. Now, we understand, I hope you understand that, of course, she was projecting. Those people never said those things. That was her projecting her feelings, like how she would feel if we had done that to her, which is one of the reasons why I made sure that that was not something I thought about as long as I was living with her. But discussions of us embarrassing her was very common in the household. And I knew that she expected us to behave and look presentable. And when we didn't, she let us know. Now, that in itself can take like 20 freaking episodes, because there were so many instances where we did not meet those standards and the repercussions were horrible. And I knew that she was very disappointed that we embarrassed her by doing one thing or another. And I'll talk about that more on the podcast. But just for today, that pressure, when I was in the cult and raising the girls, I still had that pressure, that same concept that she did, don't be embarrassing. And so I understand that how I was raised and how I look at myself, is a direct reflection on how I was raised. Like, take mirrors, for instance. I avoid them. Yep, I avoid mirrors. I'm not afraid of mirrors, but I do avoid them. When I moved into my condo, there were no mirrors in the bathroom. And I knew that wasn't gonna work for the girls because they were teenagers. So of course for them we put a mirror in their bathroom, but they also have full-length mirrors because they're very beautiful, great bodies, and they love looking at themselves, and they should. Everybody should be looking at full-length mirrors except me. But yes, before you ask, if you're wondering, there is a mirror in my bathroom. Now, do I look in it? Not really. I mean, I use the mirror for the purpose. I use them to make sure that I am not looking like a toad, but I'm not one of those people that's going to glare in the mirror. I think that there are times, honestly, if you can comprehend this, that I am actually staring or looking in the mirror, but I don't actually see myself. So, like, if I'm brushing my teeth, I'm looking at it just to look at my teeth. I'm looking for my hair. I'm just looking at it for my hair. I'm not really looking at me, despite my song. I know y'all think it, but you love it. Okay, but y'all know anyway. But even when I'm in stores, if I walk by a mirror, sometimes I'm a little hesitant to look at it. And then there are times that I don't look at it at all, and I'll avoid it. So if I see him, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even gonna look that way. In my head, I don't say it out loud. So before you think she's contradicting herself, she's not comfortable in the skin she is, I am. I'm not contradicting myself. I am very comfortable with my looks. I've accepted my looks. I just don't see the need to keep looking in the mirror. Because when I look in the mirror, I don't say, oh my God, I'm so ugly. I ain't gonna say never say it, but that's not what I do. It's not like if I see myself in the mirror, I'm like, oh my God. But I do have negative feelings about my size and my clothes. And I haven't really been into my outer appearance like I was when I was younger, before I had children. And of course, like I said, it was imperative that we looked right when we were children growing up. But being a single mom and living in survival mode for so long, it actually changed how I operate. And my focus was making sure that the girls look great, because I just didn't want that to be another thing that they had to deal with. They were already in an area where they were mostly everybody living in 2-family household, and they were already going to be the kids who had a single mom, who had a mom who worked. And so I just thought, you know what, if they can look great. Now I was very frugal and I bought their stuff on clearance, but I wanted to make sure they look great. So because I was in survival mode and sometimes struggling with money, that didn't leave a lot of money or time for me to focus on me and the way I look. And so I kind of got used to that over the years. But look, man, I'm not perfect, and I know that I have a long way to go. And I hope that one day that a mirror won't make me want to run away. I'm just kidding. I hate running. I ain't nobody running nowhere. I do hate running too. But okay, look, on my road to 50, the big 50, you know, who knows? You know, maybe I'll do a photo shoot. But I mean, that's not on my list. It's not even a goal, but you know, who knows? I don't know who I will be when I'm 50. I'm working on that. But regardless, I know these things. I know I have more work to do, and that's okay. It's okay to know that you have more work to do on yourself, and that I am going to do the work. Because y'all know who my girl is. Like MJB, Mary J. Blige says to the theme song for my life. And now y'all about to see why I like the lyrics. I like what I see when I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stress through the night at a time of my life. Ain't worried about it if you feel it. Got my head on straight. I got my vibe right. Ain't gonna let you kill it. You see, I went and changed my life. My life's just fine. All right, so meet me on the other side of Fortified the podcast, the website, Instagram. New episodes will be released every Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please don't forget to rate the podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so others can find it, or all platforms now. And I really do appreciate your feedback and your support. So now the next episode is from my Gen X versus Z series. So we're going to be talking to Gen Z representative, the Booger Canvas, and we're going to be discussing life after high school. The first episode has already been recorded. It will air on August 1st, Monday, August 1st at 5 a.m. And we're going to be talking with rising college senior Destiny. She's going to share what life is like after high school for her. So it's a fun, lighthearted episode. I've got lots more students and young people to talk to that you're going to hear from them, and hopefully we'll be able to reach some people. And I actually hope that you're enjoying both series, my solo episodes and my X versus Z episode. Until next time, have a great day.